Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called General Distress Received, written by IAreGoodAtRighting. General Distress Received. Standard date 02-20.2557-06-3255. Source IRV Pacific Dusk. Tesla class research vessel. Type automated FTL transmission. Reason hull breach detected. Life support failure recorded. Hazardous trajectory. Main thrusters offline. Location Star System GF00109. Coordinates X151.12, Y -88.49, Z -4.92. Day 1. The airlock slammed shut with a heavy thud. Katsura grabbed the handle next to her seat and yanked it back. A metallic squeal and an explosion sent the escape pod rocketing into space. The initial force slammed her into the pilot's chair and pressed her internal organs hard, but they were away from the Pacific dusk. She checked the dashboard's radar for other life pods. Nothing. Minutes passed. They were alone. She unbuckled herself and checked the passenger compartment behind her. The escape pod had a capacity of 20. There was only one Tillian strapped in on the seat closest to the back door. All four of his amber eyes fixed in the seat in front of him with a 1,000-yard stare. "Hey," she moved down the aisle between the seats. "Hey," she repeated when she reached him. His eyes didn't move. The fabric harness twisted and groaned under his iron grip. Tillian scales were normally lime green with orange accents, but his were a sickly yellow color. "Hey," she placed her hand on his shoulder, and he jolted in his seat, noticing her for the first time. After blinking one eye at a time, he looked around the cabin. Where is everyone else?" "We're the only ones in this pod," she tried, keeping her voice light. The small porthole at the back of the escape pod revealed the twisted wreck of a Pacific dusk falling into an angry red gas giant's gravity well. How many others are there?" Katsura kept watching the portal, wanting to avoid the Tillian's desperate stare. "I'm keeping an eye on it. If anything new pings, I'll set a course immediately so that we can link up pods." We're the only ones that made it out." The wreck was falling faster and faster towards the ammonia clouds below. If a pod launched now, it couldn't escape the planet's pull. She didn't know how to answer, so she said nothing. The Tillian covered his eyes and grimaced, revealing 2 rows of needle-like teeth. By the Overlord, 348 gone, just like that. Lieutenant Nassoon, Hakkad, Gustine." "Look at me," Katsura cut in. "Focus on the here and now. What's your name?" He took a deep breath. "Ensign Nalip Farsia. I am Ensign Katsura Takagi. Feel free to drop the formalities and call me Katsura." Day 3. In the morning, Katsura and Nahib watched the portal as the Pacific dusk finally slipped beneath the clouds. It cast a gloom over the rest of their day. They decided taking inventory in the cockpit would keep them distracted. "According to the manifest, food stores are divided 3 ways for human, Tillian, and Skitarian anatomies. Unless either of us wants our insides violently liquefied, I think it's a good idea to avoid the Skitari rations." Katsura hoped to lighten the air with sarcasm, but Nahib simply shrugged. "Assuming that we keep eating carefully, 2 people can make that last about," she finished the calculation in the manifest margin, 2.5 months. "What's the point? Why not just eat until we're full and space ourselves when we run out?" "Because help is coming." "Don't be stupid. You know how far we are from Interstellar Republic space." Katsura dropped the manifest onto the dashboard. "Far enough to know that they've picked up a distress beacon by now. Any ship in the Republic worth its salt would drop everything and head straight for us." Nalib scoffed and folded his arms. "You can't possibly believe that the drivel they taught us in the academy applies to exploration ships light years into uncharted space." She clenched her fists. "I'd believe it if we were on the far side of Andromeda. If you want to go on with that miserable defeatist attitude, you'll end up spacing yourself long before help arrives. And you have the fecking nerve to call me stupid." She looked away so he couldn't see tears in her eyes. A heavy silence settled between them. "That was too far. I'm sorry." Day 24. Whoever chose the contents of the escape pod understood that boredom could be as big of an enemy as hunger or thirst. In the manifest, Katsura noted a deck of playing cards, a Tillian board game similar to chess, and a Skitarii game that projected a small map of their homeworld in Iktazi. The last one came with a small box of miniature Skitarii soldiers, but neither Katsura nor Nalib knew how to play. At first, he refused to play anything, but gave in after an hour of prodding. Katsura opted for the last game, and they spent a day coming up with their own rules. Nalib stroked his chin and moved his 4 eyes independently across the board. A smirk tugged at the corner of his lips as he moved one of his pieces. High Overlord to the Nazamar Desert, say goodbye to your orbital shock troopers. You're really going to try that when I just spent the last turn moving my AA units to that province to reinforce them? My Overlord hasn't failed me yet. Today will not be that day. She drew a card from the deck next to the board, 3 of spades. The Overlord forces the AA and shock troopers to retreat to the adjacent province. Wow! She threw her hands in the air. Stupid game. Nalib cackled as he moved more reinforcements behind the Overlord. Can we change a defeat to 2 or less? No, it would be too unfair. She scoffed and shuffled the cards back into the deck. Day 39. They sat in the cockpit and ate their dinner together silently. Outside the window, the gas giant was a distant red spot that Katsura could almost cover with her thumb. She was nibbling on a nutrient-rich food block that tasted like chalk. Nalib scoffed at himself. What? Nah, just thinking about how unlikely it was that the Pacific dusk went down like that, and how unlucky we were to be right next to the escape pods. You know, I was just heading back to the chem lab from the bathroom. It was a freak accident. While in orbit around the gas giant, taking helium samples, a meteorite the size of a basketball was detected moving towards the hull at 140 miles per second. It was picked up too late to evade and impacted on an oblique angle. The ship was almost cleaved in half. Is this a roundabout way of telling me that you don't enjoy my company? Despite everything, he managed a small smile. It faded quickly. We were thousands and thousands of miles from the ring system. We should have been safe. Maybe it was an extra solar capture. That gas giant is on the outer edge of the system. Probably. I just can't wrap my head around how somewhere billions of years ago and light years away, 2 planets collided and the resulting debris launched into space had to hit our tiny little spot in the galaxy. There was a long silence while they both ate. Nalib, he looked over. It wasn't bad luck that put us on that escape pod. Our stories are still going on. Captain Zarek, all the people you and I know, they aren't that lucky. It doesn't matter if we've been dealt a really crappy hand over the past 5 or 6 weeks, because there is still room on our pages to turn it around. When I felt that impact, the sirens going quiet as the atmosphere left the room, I thought that was it. The fact that there are 2 people still around to remember everyone we lost means that there's still some luck to be found out here. Can you turn the pod around? I don't really want to look at the gas giant anymore. Day 58. At the start of their isolation, Nalib was adamant about not using the e-readers found in one of the storage. Resigned to his fate, he paced up and down the pod contemplating mortality with Katsuna lounging across the seats and enjoying some of the 130 terabytes of reading material in the palm of her hand. When the days stretched to weeks, he eventually gave in and joined her book club. Nah, I don't get it. At this point, Watney is unaware Earth knows he's alive. To what end is he pushing towards? Because he knows NASA will try and save him as soon as they find out he's still stuck there. There is no other option besides survival. But how does he know? The story makes it clear how long, costly, and dangerous missions to Mars can be. What if the human space agencies judge the risk greater than the reward? Then it wouldn't feel like a realistic story. Even if there is a chance he could be saved, there is no limit to how far people will go to bail him out. Aren't Tillians and Skitarii the same? To an extent, sure. But think about when we read Voyage into the Uzaran's Rift the other week. The other Tillian explorers could have saved Captain Entrala when he got trapped on the other end of the portal. But at least half a dozen of them would die in an attempt to get him out. It wouldn't make sense to attempt it. I don't know. The fact that they didn't even try rubbed me the wrong way. Why? From both logical and emotional standpoint, it makes no sense to risk so many lives for just one person. Katsura sighed. This would be the last survival story she shared with him. Day 71. The pod was heavy with the black mood. It wasn't started by anything in particular, but over the past few days, Katsura and Nali both withdrew from their usual activities. They sat on opposite ends of the pod, Katsura taking the seats close to the rear porthole and Nalib resting his eyes in the cockpit. The Skitarii map game lay on its side, flickering on and off. The e-readers were covered with a thin layer of dust on the dashboard. She checked the rations panel twice in the last 30 minutes and felt worse each time. And there wasn't much left. A day or two at tops. The little that was there long lost its appeal. Tillian rations weren't faring well either. Nalib looked like hell too. His eyes were sunken and distant. That sickly yellow hue to his scales returned. He finally looked as well as he felt. Not that she had much room to judge. Her black hair was greasy and matted, and months without a shower left her feeling demoralized and disgusting. It was always going to be a long haul before rescue came, but she never spent too much time dwelling on the how much time it would be. It had been at least a day since either of them spoke. She joined Nalib in the cockpit to exercise her vocal cords. "Top 3 Tillian synth bands, go." He opened one of his eyes to look at her and then closed it again. "I don't know how much more of this I can take. That's a long name, but your synth bands are like that. Next one?" "I'm serious. Are they a parody group?" Katsura stopped. He opened all 4 of his eyes and turned to her. "What day is it?" "I think we're on 71. I might have forgotten to log a couple days once they started blending together." "Why are we still doing this? What do we have left?" "The rescue operation was never going to be quick when we were this far out, but every new day is a chance they might get to us. We may run out of food, our water purifier might eventually break down, but as long as one of us is alive, we can never run out of hope." She expected him to scoff at this comment, deflect it, or even ignore it completely. "Okay, you're right." He sat up and rubbed his eyes. "Tillian synth bands, are you referring to classical synth, retro synth, or modern synth?" Day 90-something. Katsura didn't wake up from her sleep last night. Rations are long gone and her body finally shut down. It was a peaceful passing. Nalib used what little strength he had left to carry her into the airlock and slowly vented the atmosphere inside the chamber to preserve her body. Despite their disagreements, she was ultimately right. Hope is everything, and giving up is not an option. After spending the day weeping over her absence and praying that he could see her smiling face one last time, Nalib sat in the pilot's seat and checked over the console. The distress beacon was still strong and clear. Its range was easily far enough to get into interstellar Republic space. Someone had to come. He needed to tell her story. Deep space transmission received. Standard date 10.26.2557, 210340. Source IRV Revenant of Mars, Spectre class patrol frigate. Type radar report, First Lieutenant Monica Kemp. Location Star System GF00109. Coordinates X-170.55, Y-198.12, Z 2.6. Text IRV Pacific Dusk not found. Radar scans show 1 escape pod. 1 lifeform detected. Moving to recover. End of story. I would just quickly like to thank the T5 peeps: Dragon Soup, Cold War Boomerwaffen, Severin Cerberus, Red Panda 121, Leslie 517, Bushmaster 177, Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Sans the Skeleton, Lightjock, Dragzoon WRE, and Lord Azrakal. Thank you very much.